Okay, Tokyo, South America, Australia, France, Germany, UK, calling out around the world.
Hey, man, it's all
Brand new beat, summer's here and the time is right.
but dancing in the street. All right, folks. 9:00 Sunday. It's the Crack House Podcast. My name is Mike O'Sullivan. Joining me, as always, in everything crack house-ish, crackheadish, whatever you want to call it, is my man Chris Muscolino. What's up, dude?
Big Mike, what's good, man?
Nah, nothing. Everything. Long day today. Was out. One of my kids plays softball, so I was just at the field. It's the most draining thing in the world. You're not doing anything, but man, when you sit out in that heat all day, and you just, I guess it's just getting old too, man. You sit out in that heat all day, you're just shot when you get home. Like you just want, you just want to collapse. You want to take a shower and then just collapse.
I was out DJing last night for a graduation party. Same deal. You get old, man. You get close to 50, and it's like the heat starts taking its toll on you.
Oh yeah, it just
stuff that you could do like 20 years ago or even 10 years ago. You know, all of a sudden you need kids to help you and people to help you. It's
yeah, it just beats the shit. Like the sun just beats the shit out of you at a certain age. Like you just want to. Dude, it was like being at the beach when you were a kid.
yeah,
And like
man.
like I want to pass out in the car going home, and I can't because I got to drive home.
But I tell you, man, I think we alluded to this in a couple prior podcasts, and this is like it's like my favorite time of the year, you know. And it harkens back. I know you went into to see the Van Gogh exhibit, and a couple of my buddies want to drag me into the city to check it out. But you know, July 4th is coming up next week.
Yeah.
Summer's in full gear almost. It's beach time, and just harkens back to a different time, man. When we were kids, you know, I just remember growing up in Astoria and you know, sitting around July 4th, and it was like all hell would break loose around that time. I don't know if you remember it too much, but
Yeah,
you know,
it was. You have to go. Number one, you would have to go find the guy selling illegal fireworks.
right.
That was like the one neighborhood thing. I remember one year going down to, what was it, Wallbaum's on 33rd Street? No, on 37th, down by the playground over there, like 37th and 21st Avenue, right behind ICYP. And there was a guy, just some dude. Somebody said, go down there. There's a guy with it. And there was a guy, this sketchy, white, trashy looking dude with his trunk open in his car. And he was just like leaning on his trunk like this. And you would just go up to this guy and be like, what do you got? And I was a little kid on my dirt bike. And he just opened the trunk. He's like, well, what do you want? And he'd look and be like, how much is that? How much is that? The guy never budged on the price. It was, you know, if you had $10, he goes, here's $10 worth of fire. You weren't getting anything extra, nothing else. And that's how I remember it. Either that or you drove into, like, people don't get, like, you used to be able to drive into Chinatown and buy fireworks.
So is it still a thing? I mean, do people still shoot off fireworks? I mean,
in Queens, man, it's still going on. Like,
it still goes on.
And now, since, like, you know, no one's doing anything, you know, there's less and less enforcement in the city. Dude, it's like my neighborhood is a pretty, like, I guess you call it residential, but there are nights it sounds like Beirut.
And that's
like,
what I remember,
especially
man.
with like middle, you know, like I live right next to Middle Village, which is like predominantly Italian, and Italians love fireworks, man. They love blowing shit up. And
I remember back in the day, like probably in the late 80s, you know, I remember the Gotti thing, I guess, at the Ravenite in Ozone Park. For those who from that area, Queens, I remember I was hanging out with a couple kids from Richmond Hill and stuff, and we used to go over there, check out the fireworks show there. But I remember our block, man. I remember vividly a couple things strike out. You know, for those that grew up in Astoria, man, I remember Astoria Park being off the hook around that time. People like sneaking in like after 9 o'clock, you know, right around this time of year. I remember one guy blew his hand off. I don't know if you had moved to the neighborhood at that point, but they were lighting, basically on me and Michael's block, there was, every year was fireworks, but there were certain years that was just even crazier. Like guys were like putting M80s in garbage cans.
Yeah.
And Michael basically lives under the Hell's Gates Bridge. He lives right up the block from my parents and stuff. But it used to be like a contest. Kids used to like put M80s in the garbage cans to see who could shoot the goddamn garbage can higher in the air. And I remember one year, I guess one guy, he blew his hand off, man. I don't know if you remember it. I mean, it was insane. I mean, people going crazy. And like Michael says,
Yeah.
it was like goddamn Beirut, man. But it
Yeah,
was so fun,
And it was like the week before 4th of July and the week after, man.
Right.
It just, the city just sounded like it was like World War III. I remember one year, I had an M80. I was with Paul Agostino. And we were
name, Mike.
Paul. Wow, Paul. Come on. We were in the U yard at 122 up the block.
Right.
Which was like a big schoolyard where we used to play ball. We had just a coffee can and we covered it with an M, and we put it over an M80, and it just disintegrated the can. Like we thought the can was going to fly up. This coffee can just disintegrated. There was like shrapnel. We should have been hit with shrapnel. Like that's how much, like, shit went everywhere. And it was so loud because it was so enclosed, the area. Oh man. Yeah, but it is, man. People would blow out windows. People would like throw M80s under cars.
It was insane, man.
It was crazy.
And I would tell you, you're absolutely right. From like this week to like the week after, and I think it would kick into like the beginning, first week or second week of August, I guess, when people going on vacation and stuff. Literally, if it was a hot summer in Astoria, man, I don't know where everybody else is from. I mean, me and Michael have friends from all over the place and stuff, different parts of the country. But I would say from like June 20, this week to like August 1st, August 7th, when people would go away on vacation, crazy shit would happen, man, especially back in the 70s and the 80s. Like everybody was on the stoops. It's just like, the movies that you see and stuff that capture old Brooklyn and old Queens and stuff. And everybody was up to like, it was like a cat on a hot tin roof. I mean, that's the best way I can explain it. Like, fights breaking out, the fireworks, the craziness.
Yeah, no one cared. Most of the adults were like half in the bag already because they'd been drinking and barbecuing all day.
Yeah.
Some adult would give you like a cigar and be like, "Here, take the cigar and go light all the fireworks off." Or you would go buy the punks from like the ice cream truck. They didn't care either. You could go
for those
buy that.
that remember, I don't know if you remember, Astoria Park closed at like 9:00 if I remember correctly, right? And then it was a big thing, I guess, for guys to jump the fence and get in, and swim, when it was like brutally hot. I remember a couple summers where, heat wave, it didn't last like a couple days. We could maybe talk about global warming, Mike, at some point, or climate change, or whatever the hell you want to call it these days. But I don't know about you, but I remember a couple summers where it just seemed like it was 90 degrees for like 2 months straight. There was like no break.
No. I remember like leaving our houses and walking up to like Steinway Street, like going to the movies. And you just felt like you melted by the time you got to the movie theater.
Man. Right.
And like from our house to the movie theater was probably like a mile and a half.
And I don't know you. I mean, you made a reverse trip. So you came from Port Jeff. So I was born and raised in Astoria. Michael moved, I guess, back to Astoria when he was about 8 or 9. But I guess his family lived out in Port Jeff at some point. So he made the reverse trip. I moved further out east. He came the other direction. My family's still there. His family's still there. But I'm in Suffolk County. And me,
you're the only one that really went out that far. I was out by you today. That's where the softball game was. Out. Like, was that like exit 64?
I don't know if you experienced it when you're out here and stuff. It always seems like a couple degrees cooler out here than
yeah. At night,
it's like I could be at my parents' house and it's like 90, 95, and I come out to my house and it's still hot, but it's like 85, like it's almost like a New England feel. I mean, it's weird to explain.
No,
like,
it is. No, it's always cooler out there. But I mean, too, man, like you don't have as many people living out there either.
Yeah.
It's not everyone huddled in. And how many apartment buildings are out by you,
Nah, man.
And
even in the wintertime, man, it's like the same shit. It's like, you guys will get a couple inches there, and out here we get blasted like 12 inches, 13 inches. It's the weirdest shit. I don't know, but no, I figured we'd talk about the summer, man. It's getting hot. I got a lot of gigs coming up. I did a couple graduation parties. COVID's over, man. I mean, I'm watching ball games, with 75, 80% capacity. You're in the
Yeah,
city,
yeah.
at the Van Gogh experience. I'm excited, man. It's been a long time coming. I think by September, COVID will be a distant memory for a lot of people, hopefully.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the Van Gogh exhibit, I I think it was kind of a little sham. I didn't think it was anything special.
Right, right, right.
I'm not going to give away what it's just like it was an interactive thing with his artwork. I will just say this about it. If you're an art lover, go. If you appreciate art, go check it out. If you can get your hands on mushrooms, acid, edible weed, any type of hallucinogen, take it before you go.
And it's gonna be legal, folks. You're
Yeah,
not gonna have to worry.
it's all legal, but going in there sober, I went in there sober and it sucked.
My
It was like watch. It's like a little bit of a movie thing going on, and you were just like, all right, it's over. I'm done. Let's go.
some of my kids' friends, we hang out with a group of people. They brought it up a couple weeks ago. They're like, "Oh, let's go into the city. Let's check this thing out." I'm like, "Van Gogh, that's the guy who cut his ear off, right?" I mean,
Yeah.
well, I remember being in the Hayden Planetarium back in the day in the summer. I remember on the trips at school and stuff, and watching the Pink Floyd shows, if you remember. But
Oh yeah, yeah. It's exactly like that. You gotta have you gotta bring party favors with you. That's all I'll say. Bring a party favor with you when you go see this thing. Do not go in clear headed. You will not enjoy it.
And going back to crazy shit in the city in the summer, right? So check this out. I think we talked about this off air. I don't know if anybody saw this week, but how about this guy who basically is a North Carolina guy? He's an engineer, and I guess in the middle of Times Square, he's riding around like the goddamn Green Goblin. He was on a
Yeah, what the? Yeah, the guy was flying around on a hoverboard, man.
Dude, how cool was that? I watched the video on Twitter. I'm like, what the F, man? And you know what? Somebody brought up a good point on Twitter. They were like, for people from New York City, that shit just doesn't phase you. You're walking around New York City and you're in Times Square. And, I'm
Yeah.
looking at it in video, but I'm thinking to myself, like, if I saw that, if I was walking down the street, if I was down 42nd Street and, whatever, and I saw this guy flying around like the goddamn Green Goblin, like on a hoverboard, I don't think it really would phase me, Mike. Would it you?
I
Like,
mean,
I would do like a side glance.
Yeah, you're
right?
gonna do a double. Like, holy shit, that guy's flying across fucking Times. You're definitely gonna do that. That's definitely gonna like enter your mind. But you know what see? You know what it is, man? Because everything's so commercial now. The first thing in my mind would be like,
Was it
oh,
staged?
what company just paid
Sponsored
$1
this.
million? Yeah, is this guy
Yeah.
got like a Reebok jacket on or whatever? So, but I'm surprised he didn't get in trouble for it. Because
Allegedly, I think they reported him because I guess there's some sort of rules with I guess flying in crowded areas, that kind of stuff, and so low to the ground, which he was pretty low.
yeah.
He's about 30 or 40 feet, I guess, up in the air, I guess, if that.
Yeah, that's gotta. Yeah, I saw part of the video, and it's gotta violate something what this guy did, because I'm sure he has no permit to fly it, no license to fly anything like it. It's a little weird. So he's probably definitely going to get slapped with fines
But
down
think
the
about
road.
this. That shit's going to be legal at some point. I mean, between
It's going to be a mode of transportation
Right.
eventually.
between driverless cars, between flying cars, that shit, they're going to figure shit out where that's going to be the norm at some point. I just expected it at this point. Looking back, like, bringing up a movie, for example, I looked at a lot of stuff in Back to the Future when we were kids, the first one, and I said, you know what? By now, I figured we have flying cars. I figured that a lot of the technology that you saw back then would have came. There's certain stuff like I never envisioned would ever happen. I never envisioned I'd have a cell phone, basically a computer in my hand, operating
yeah,
Commodore
yeah.
64 in 1987,
Yeah.
1988, right? But there's
But
some
my-
shit like I fully expected that we'd have by now. Like flying cars, I fully expected by our time. But
Yeah.
the reality of it is, I think the technology is coming along so quickly. Like, I think within our lifetime, I mean, a lot of this stuff will come to fruition, and I think shit like this, it's not going to be like a carnival act. I think it's going to be
Oh
no
no,
big
yeah,
deal.
no, it's the same thing when there was like when Segways first started. I mean, now it's like the Segways kind of like morphed into things. Like there's that little wheel thing. You just put your feet on both sides. People zip around. There's electric scooters everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, those electric scooters, electric bikes, which were outlawed in the city. And then once COVID started, you needed to get a delivery guy everywhere. So
Yeah.
they just let the e-bike thing, they just let it go. I don't know if they're ever going to outlaw it now because so
I
many
never
people.
understood that. Like I'm driving to my parents' house, right? You know, on 21st Street around there in that area, and I'm like, I see like these Citibank bikes, like just, you know, basically parked, and I'm thinking to myself,
Yeah.
back when we grew up, these things would have been lifted, like 1, 2, 3, right?
They
No,
were. I talked to a cop one time about it. Down, they have like a whole bunch of them down by the Staten Island Ferry,
okay,
and I mean they do get stolen. When they first came out, like those docks they're in,
right.
the guy was explaining to me, he goes, these things are so easy to pull out of the. All you had to do is lift the bike up and pull back. They supposedly fixed it, but he said it used to be so easy. But here's the other thing: all those bikes had GPS. So once
Okay,
they're
okay.
reported stolen, if a cop wants to track one down, he can.
They'll find it through GPS.
And here was the kicker: if you got locked up with one of them, it was a felony because
Oh, okay.
those bikes are over $1,000. So you were getting
George.
slapped. So instead of just stealing a bike, you were getting slapped with a grand larceny felony.
So you want to hear a funny story similar to what you just explained on how to recover the bikes and stuff?
Yeah.
So our friend George, who came on the show a couple weeks ago, right? The
Yeah.
actor and stuff, the stunt guy.
Yeah.
We're at St. John's, right? And I guess George did something wrong, right? So I guess he was getting too many parking tickets in the St. John's parking lot. So they're looking for this guy in class, right? You know, the security people come, hey, is George here? George here? Nobody, the classes he basically, just sat there and just like a mime. So eventually, I guess what happened was they booted his car. They booted his car in the St. John's parking lot, so he couldn't move. So I'm with him. So basically, he did exactly what you said with the bikes. He backed up, and then I guess somehow he had like a cutter in his back seat of the car, and he cut the boot, and he left a note for the security guy saying something to the effect of "Nice try, dicks." But 30 years ago, you could get away with it. That's why I'm saying, like today, like contrasting like the bikes now versus back then. I mean, those things would have been.
Yeah, the guy said it. One cop told me, he goes, it's so easy. He goes, you just up and back. He goes, they pop out like nothing.
Right.
So
now it was cool. I saw that. I saw that a couple of days ago on Twitter, and I looked at that challenge. I'm sorry, the hoverboard thing, and I'm like, wow, man.
Well, let me ask you this: have you ever ridden like a Segway or anything like that? They're awesome. I rode a Segway once, like 2 years ago. I was in New Orleans.
Okay.
We did a Segway tour of New Orleans, like just the French Quarter down there, like Bourbon Street and everything.
Okay.
Those things are awesome. Because I don't think they're that legal up. I don't think they're legal in New York City to have.
Okay.
If I could get one, I would get one up here. Those things fly, and they're easy to drive. You just put a little pressure up front, like you just lean forward a little bit, and these things take off.
Let me ask you this, man.
But you can get fucked up on it if you wipe out.
You brought it up, right? So ex-law enforcement, right? And all the cops out there. What's the roughest area you've been in? So I've been to Bourbon Street. A guy watches the show, my friend Joe. He's got an interesting story about Bourbon Street. We grew up in Astoria in the 70s and the 80s. What's the roughest place in America that you've been to? Was it Bourbon Street? Because I thought it was pretty rough in the early 90s.
Bourbon Street, I mean, I was just there 2 years ago. Let's put it this way. You were there in the 90s. I was there 2 years ago, and we took a couple like walking tours and stuff like that. One was at night, about 8, 9 o'clock at night, by 9 o'clock, because it was dark already. It was the summertime.
Okay.
Excuse me. And the girl doing the tour, there's a lot of like hipstery weirdos down there.
Okay.
Everything's haunted down there. But the girl said it. She goes, there's a bar that's haunted 2 blocks that way, but I suggest you do not go there by yourself. Because I'll say this: if people don't know Bourbon Street, if you wander off a couple of blocks in either direction, good night and God bless, man.
So I'll give you my top 3. Number 1, Atlantic City.
Yeah. Okay. I remember going there like early 90s.
Atlantic City for me is probably right up there. It's number 1 or close to 2. I was in Detroit a long, long time ago for one of the All-Star games, like back in the 90s. Whenever the hell it was, might have been early 2000s. That was pretty rough.
Yeah.
Um, I'll tell you what, we grew up Astoria back in the 70s, probably early 80s. You know, fish binds up on 21st Street,
Yeah,
Queensbridge,
sir. They stay with certain
certain
places. Yeah,
areas,
yeah.
right?
If you went certain places, you took your life into your own hands.
But
And I mean, like, if let's put it this way, people want to say a story is a story. If we walked 10 blocks from where we lived, we could have issues. If we walk to the other side of Astoria Park, it could get a little hairy, right?
my brother and I were reminiscing about a story, another summer story, right? So we're coming home. I had a couple of friends of mine, fraternity brothers from St. John's, right? We had a fraternity formal. It was like, this time of year, right? Or maybe a little bit earlier. And I don't know if you remember it. There was a guy up the block. I guess he got into an argument, and the other guy was in the 122 schoolyard, and he shot the guy dead. And I guess there was like a white chalk line in front of Eddie's house.
Yeah. There was blood in front of my parents' house because
Right.
of that guy.
So the guys from St. John's, they were all from all parts of wherever, right? So like, oh my God, there's a chalk outline in front of your house. I go, it's not in front of my house. It's 2 houses down. They're like, where the fuck do you live? This is crazy. So we the story goes, I guess my brother Jason ended up knowing one of the guys involved, and I guess there was an altercation up at 122. The guy was with his girlfriend, and I guess one guy got the better of the other guy, hit him with a bat or something. The other guy came back and shot him dead. And I guess he came down 122, down 23rd, and I guess he dropped dead in front of Eddie's place, Ubba's, and
Oh shit.
nickname for
Yeah.
one of our neighbors.
Now, I'll say two places I went to that were real shitty were both in the 90s. One was DC, Washington, like everything outside of
DC,
DC.
oh yeah, back in the Scouts, man. So me and Michael in the Boy Scouts, we used to go all over the country, man. And I remember a trip like back in '87 or '88 where we were in DC, like in Marion Barry's Washington DC, right around the time where Welcome to the Jungle from Guns N' Roses was first released. We were still in a youth hostel with like the Boy Scouts and stuff, and I remember the Boy Scout leader at the time, John. He was telling us, like stay tight, warning us of like all the bad areas. Dude, that was a pretty bad spot.
Dude, I was down there in like 95-ish. This is about 95-ish, 96 with 3 other guys I worked with.
Yeah.
We went to go see a band from another guy I worked with who was in like this college band. The band is called Too Much Joy. They were a huge college band. They're still around. My buddy Tommy, and I was with my friends Scotty, Ronnie, and Frank. We drove down there, and one of the nights we saw the band, we're going back to the hotel, and we're like, oh man, I gotta take a leak. So we stop into a police station, and we just start talking to them. We're like, hey, we're from New York City, we're cops, and blah 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 blah. One thing led to another, and the cop there goes, want to go for a ride along? So we're like, all right. Man, this guy drove us around like the ghetto of DC. And like, I was like, dude, none of us have guns or anything. We're like, what? Like, get us. I'll say that was bad. And Baltimore.
Yeah, I've been to Baltimore.
I went to like the 42nd Street, I guess, of like Baltimore. Oh my God, man. I felt like it was like I went down there for an Orioles Yankees game. It was a trip. And one guy's like, yo, man, take us to like 42nd Street or whatever. So we go down like their little seedy district. And man, I felt like that scene in Animal House when they walk into the Dexter Lake Club. Like the music went. I mean, this was like.
Can we dance with your dates?
Yeah, that's what it was like, man. Oh, if we had girls with us, those girls were done.
Oh, I'll give you another spot, Mike. Me and my buddies, we went on to a road trip up to Drexel University in Pennsylvania, right near Philly, near Temple. Boy, like late at night for all those who've been up in the area, there's a McDonald's not too far. Me and my buddy Mike walked in there late at night, 3 a.m. Homeless guy follows us in, grabs the 40 ounce that my buddy Mike leaves outside, sits next to us in McDonald's. We're the only white dudes in the place.
Yeah.
We're hungry. We won't give a shit. I don't care. I don't care about color. Neither is my buddy Mike. Guy sits next to us. He's trying to intimidate Mike. And Mike's this big 6'4" German guy with a goatee. We called him Anvil, right? And from Jim the Anvil Neidhart. And he sits next to Mike, and he's a small guy, and he goes, "You gonna eat that pickle?" As Mike's eating like a hamburger, like from from McDonald's. He goes, "Yeah, I'm gonna eat the pickle." And he goes, "You want some 40-ounce?" He goes, "That's my 40-ounce that I left right outside." So we walk out, we finish our meal. 3:30 in the morning, the guy follows us out. He's like, "You know what? How about I bust a cap in your blah 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 blah?" Like, "Yeah, okay, bro, knock yourself out." We just walked away, man. But it was like, it looked like fish spines. It looked like Queensbridge. There. Rough.
Yeah, man. There was some like we always say like New York is tough, man, but then you go like
There's some spots. There's some spots out there.
Like what the? I drove through. I think I drove through like one part of like Compton, but it was during the day.
I didn't think too much of it.
But it was like during the day. I didn't.
Yeah, me too. It was about 15 years ago. I was out there.
Yeah, I think I've been to Miami.
Yeah,
that was during the day. You know what it was? Most of the stuff was like during the day. So, Dallas wasn't bad. You ever been to Dallas? Dallas at night.
I've been at pretty much every major city in Texas, man. You know what? Austin can get a little seedy, but I didn't really feel.
Yeah, but Austin's like a weird villagey type of vibe, and it's like the homeless guy's just a stoned out hippie. He's not going to stab you for a nickel.
Look, you grew up in Astoria. You're ex-law enforcement. I grew up in Astoria. I can handle myself in most situations. I guess what I'm alluding to is like situations or places where you felt unsafe, and I never really got that vibe from Austin. It was more like you said, like drugs, drugs, hippie, music type stuff. But like Philly, near Temple, Astoria, back in like when we were kids, like we were talking about, like in the beginning of the show. I would say Detroit is kind of tough because I stayed around Comerica Stadium. Baltimore wasn't bad for me. I mean, I just basically went to the Yankee game. We went to Camden Park, Camden Yards. I stayed like in the nice spots, so to speak. I'll tell you, out on Long Island, there's really not too many spots, but I'll tell you one place, Mastic. I don't know if you ever heard of that place. Mastic, I break my wife's chops all the time because, she's born and raised out here, and she takes offense when I talk about my experiences growing up in the city and how, I have like a tougher, background. She gets very apprehensive about how she's, sheltered or grew up in a sheltered neighborhood or a nice neighborhood and stuff. And she's like, that's bullshit. You don't even live in New York City. You live in Queens. And I'm like, which drives me crazy. It's a conversation for another day. But for those people out on Long Island, I think the one place that really took me back was probably Mastic. I walked out there and it's like, I was in a car and it's like one of those places where, don't open your doors, that type of deal.
Roll them up.
Right.
Roll them up. I had a buddy of mine. He went out. Remember Dorney Park out in Pennsylvania?
Sure.
He says that that neighborhood that like surrounds Dorney Park is just a dump.
Okay.
He was out there like visiting someone, and he's like driving through these neighborhoods. He's like, "Where the hell am I?" I mean, yeah. He goes. It was just like crack houses and burnt out buildings, and
what was pretty rough too in New York? There's two spots. Rockaway, back in the 80s, early 90s.
Far Rockaway is
Far
just
Rockaway, dude. That place was no joke.
That place is like Vietnam still.
Like around, I would say anything lower than Beach 109th Street. I remember going to the beach back there in the 80s and the 90s with buddies, and I just remember being on that boardwalk, and it's like we always went like groups of kids, like 10, 20 kids, and it's like, holy shit, like wandering dogs, packs of kids. It's like, I feel like I'm afraid for my life. Yeah, this is crazy. Albany near your Albany University
I heard.
is not so great.
I worked with a guy that grew up there, and he said like parts of it were just a complete shithole. I worked with a guy too he went to school up by Utica, and he said that was a mess up there. He said he used to go to bed to gunshots.
Yeah, man. And then I think Odillo, our friend Odillo, Tony, I think he went to a Raiders Buffalo championship game, and I remember him It's been a long time since I've been to Buffalo, and I don't really have fond memories of that place
I
either.
was with him on that trip.
Oh, you went to the trip. Okay.
Him, and Mark went,
Okay.
and I don't remember it being that bad.
I remember him or one of you guys telling me that it was really not great. I went there about
It's like a run, like Buffalo. It's just like it's like a rundown town. I went here. I'll tell you how I was in Buffalo 10, 11 years ago, about
Okay.
10 years ago, for my kids. My kids used to be on a swim team. That place, the Anchor Bar that's up there, you know,
Right.
the home of the wing.
Yeah.
It's in the middle of a ghetto. It's a dump. Like I was there at like 5 p.m. because I wanted to try the original buffalo wing.
Okay.
So the kids went swimming. They were done swimming for the day, and it was like, we got to go here. We're up here. We might as well go. And we went in there, and like there were crackheads walking around in the middle of the day, right, like across the street from the place. A lot of burnt out buildings, a lot of rundown. It looked like a place from like the 1980s, like you'd see in a movie, like just like a burnt out, like kind of just like a shelled neighborhood that got ravaged by drugs and never came back. That's exactly that. That to me is like what that part of Buffalo, like where that Anchor Bar is what it looked like. It was just like a shelled out, a lot of old storefronts, a lot of stuff that just looked closed, out of business.
Right.
But I wouldn't. But the other side of Buffalo, like where the colleges are,
That's not
weren't
too
too
bad.
bad.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, those weren't bad at all. But where that place Duff's was, I wouldn't live there. I wouldn't go. Like I wouldn't even go up there again for those wings. The wings were all right, by the way. Duff's wings.
Yeah.
If you're in
not
Buffalo,
bad spot.
if you're in Buffalo, you go. But I would never make a trip to just say I want to go to Duff's for wings. Like it's not that great.
I'll bring up an old cult classic of favorite of mine, Streets of Fire with William Defoe and Michael Pare and young Diane Lane. And she gets kidnapped by William Defoe, who's like a biker. You know, I don't know if you remember the movie.
Yeah.
He takes her to a place called the Battery, which is like a whole bunch of biker bars, and a whole bunch of like burned out buildings. It kind of reminds me of like some of these places that we're talking about. One place that comes really to mind is like a place called Tim Hickey's in the Rockaways. Remember that spot?
Yeah.
That block was filled with crack houses. Like
yeah.
at the it was like a bar where like young kids like us went to back in the day. And then if you walk down the street, it was like filled with burnt out buildings and crack houses and shit. And this time of year, it always brings back those memories because it just seems like a lot of people are on the streets. A lot of bad shit always happens or happened back then. And I'll tell you what, as bad as New York City's gotten over the last couple of years, with all the bullshit and stuff, I still don't think it's anywhere near where it was, back when we were growing up. Or,
I mean, there's not 3,000 people get. What is it going to get? What does it maybe hit this year? 500,
600.
maybe.
I mean, you know better than I do.
I think
back
it might. It was like maybe 400 or 500.
2,000, right?
Yeah,
2,400 a year, right? Well, I'll tell
know.
you what, Chicago's pretty bad, man. Right? I mean, Chicago's numbers are still pretty bad.
Chicago bangs it out of the park every week, man. They go for the gold every week. There's
what
like
30 per year in terms of murders. Is it 1,800, 2,000 a year?
I have no idea. I'll look it up, but I have no.
Dude, I think that I
don't think they're that high for some reason because I think it's a smaller.
Dude, I think it's pretty high, man. I do. And we have some relatives over there. On my father's side, up in the northern suburbs, but I don't think I've never been to Chicago. Actually, it's one of the few spots in the country that I've never been to. I hear that's pretty rough too. At least parts of it. I can imagine it's about 2,000 people or very close to it, 1,800 or some shit like that. They're always in the news. They got that whacked out mayor, Beetlejuice.
Yeah, what a wacko.
She's a fucking weirdo, bro. How some of these people get elected is just beyond me. I mean, try to stay away from politics this episode, but still can't help myself. It's got to be about 2,000, man, if I had to take a guess.
What the hell?
1,500 maybe.
I can't find it. What the F?
I mean, contrast.
Well,
I think, yeah.
I don't
I
think
gotta
it's
imagine.
2000, man.
You don't think it's 2000? I think it's pretty close, man. How about Portland? What do you think about Portland with all the bullshit that's gone on
That
out
place is
there?
just a dump.
You know,
I wouldn't live there. I wouldn't want to like. It's just I don't know.
I
I
think
wouldn't
that
want to
place could
live
be
there.
pretty rough. Portland, right?
Okay.
Good.
June 26th. 792 victims were killed in Chicago in the past 12 months.
Okay. A lot less than I thought. That's not actually too bad.
Yeah.
All things considered, I thought it was way higher.
Yeah, this is from June. This is actually from June to June. From June 2020 to June 2021. 792 people.
That's actually not bad, though. I take it back.
Hey,
I
they're
thought it
under
was much
1,000. Good job, Chicago. Good job.
higher. I thought it was something outrageous, like 1,500 or 2,000 people.
No, I don't think you have any other like major cities. I mean, they got to be up there. Like I said, the places we just talked about. I'm sure Baltimore has a decent amount. New Orleans. And New Orleans covers, I mean, I guess they go by maybe the whole county, how they cover it. And, you know, because Chicago, I think they just do like a majority of these, I'm sure, are like on the south side where most
I
of the
think
violence is.
you know what it is, Mike? I think, like you said, I think there's certain spots in each major city or these places that are really, really bad. And I think there's some decent spots within the same area, you know, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, like look at here. Perfect example. Yankee Stadium. I worked there for 12 years.
Right.
My precinct covered Yankee Stadium. And for life. And you walk 5 blocks in any direction in Yankee Stadium in the 90s, and you would hear like a night like this, a nice warm night, you were going to hear gunshots all night. So
Yeah.
there were people going to get shot. Like when I was like 1991, I think, like 2 years before I got there was something like 90 homicides in 1.9 square miles. That's how big the precinct is. 1.9 square miles. There was about 90 people murdered.
Well, I'll throw a shout out to Gary out there. I don't know why you defriended me on Facebook, but I'll throw it out anyways. I think his father was a detective in the South Bronx, Fort Apache, back in the day.
Yeah, that's the 4-1. You know, those
right?
places in the 70s were just like you went into work every day and someone was dead.
Right.
That's what it was. You were just going in every day and there was a homicide.
What was the crazy shit that happened with our neighbor Jules back in the 70s? There was some crazy story where he came home one day and I heard it secondhand. Something happened with, you know, Jules, our neighbor, was a fireman back in the 70s, I guess, in Manhattan.
Yeah, he was up in Harlem.
He was up in Harlem, right?
Like,
So
you know, basically when like the city was on fire.
Right.
Back in the 70s. So
there's a book called well, it was a TV show where the Bronx is burning. That kind of encapsulates what, you know, that time period.
Yeah, the Bronx, Upper Manhattan, everything was just, you know, what it was too was a lot of people knew they were going to get insurance money. People that own these buildings up there and like the Bronx and Manhattan.
They torched it.
So they just torched the building and said, fuck it. And they made sure everyone was out. And that was it.
When there was nothing else left, we lit a match. We torched the place.
We busted the joint out.
Dude, it's my favorite time of year, bar none. I could talk about this shit all night.
I was listening to another podcast, Defend Your Movie. The guys at Defend Your Movie, shout out Fiore and Donnelly. And there's a book out about Goodfellas. And they were going through, I forget it's not Nicholas Pileggi. It's another book about the movie Goodfellas, about them making it.
It's funny you brought I don't know if it's the same one, but there's a book. I don't know if it's the one that you're talking about. It's by the guy who played Carlo in The Godfather. The guy's in his 70s.
Gianni Russo?
Yes, Gianni Russo. So my buddy Fred, he was telling me about this the other day. I don't know if it's this same book, but this guy Russo, I don't know if you've heard or if you've, you know, read or anything. He's had a very interesting life.
I saw him. I remember seeing him on Stern years ago, and he told Stern how he got the role in The Godfather.
Yes. And they didn't want him in it.
Yeah.
They didn't want him.
Yeah.
Then there was another story. I don't know if this is hearsay, if it was in the book or what, but he talks about how I guess he beat up or killed somebody in one of the guys in the Mexican drug cartel. The guy who's tight with what's his face, Sean Penn. What's
El
the big
Chapo?
El Chapo?
El
So
Chapo's not dead. He killed El
no, no, no,
Chapo.
no. He killed an associate of his, and apparently, or he either beat the guy really badly or he killed the guy. And apparently, I guess El Chapo, in retribution, I guess kidnapped the guy and was going to kill him. And allegedly, he didn't know who he was, and then he realized that the guy was in The Godfather. And he goes, because of that, I guess he was somehow he got out of it. And I guess towards the end, when he released him, he put him in a car with two guys in the back seat. And I guess when Rossi went into the front seat, one of the guys said, hi,
Hello,
Carlo.
hello, Carlo.
And I guess in the book he talks about how he was going to get whacked, like he thought like his life flashed behind, before him, because I guess El Chapo was such a big fan of The Godfather. So he was playing a joke on him, and he goes, these two guys were sitting in the back just like in Godfather, and I guess when he got in the car, he's like, "Hello, Carlo," and he had a plane ticket with the guy's name on it, and just like in The Godfather, and he's like, "I'm going to get killed." He goes. It's a pretty interesting book. I don't know if it's the one that
Wow,
you're talking about.
what a great joke to get played on you. I think I was
Right?
going to get murdered. But the Goodfellas book, these two guys were talking about it. One of the most famous scenes in the movie was
Billy
like
Bats?
the Billy Bat scene is
Yeah.
go get your fucking shine box.
Right.
He improvised he switched the lines around. The original line is supposed to be go the hell home and get your shine box, which sounds stupid.
Right.
And he just, he puts the go home and get your fucking shine. It's iconic. I mean, think about it. It's 30 years and people are still saying it to this
So
day.
you're bringing that stuff up, Mike. So I bought a book about 7-8 months ago, and I've been kicking this around for years. Right. I'm on the verge of completing a screenplay. It's about Joe Strummer and the Clash. I basically got it finished, and I have
They
it
were in the
screenplay
Mafia?
format. What?
Is it a mafia movie?
No.
They were in the Mafia?
No.
The Clash? Joe
But
Strummer?
the piece I make is like in screenplay format. You have certain keywords: fade to the scene, cut out of the scene. You got the dialogue and stuff.
Yeah.
But basically, there's a part where it talks about improvising. So like, if I write dialogue for you, who's playing Strummer or whoever in the movie, right? There's a piece where it just says after the dialogue, improvise. So I'm sure in the guy's screenplay in that Goodfellas thing, they probably had it written as you just explained it, and then behind it, they had the words improvise, and that guy probably improvised the line. Frank Vincent, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But quick story, and I want to get back to that screenplay. But
Okay.
the Gianni Russo story, how he got the Godfather was supposedly Gianni Russo, the guy who played Carlo in the Godfather, was supposedly completely hooked up in the mafia,
Okay.
and he wants to be in the movie. He goes, I want to be an actor. So supposedly they went to Francis Ford Coppola and said,
And Marlon Brando turned around and he said, I think it's the same book, Mike. I really do.
Yeah, they're like, you're putting him in this movie. And
Right.
they're like, no, we don't want it. We want him.
Apparently the story goes, I think he grabbed Marlon Brando and he's like, he was acting out and like he grabbed Brando really tight and he said something like threatening to him. And Brando's like, this guy's perfect. Put him in the movie.
I heard when he was on Howard Stern, he didn't bring up the Brando story. He basically said, he goes, my associates, the familia, La Familia, La Cosa Nostra, whatever you want to call them, the boys, they went into Brando and said, oh, you want to shoot in New York? Oh, that's all union jobs. He's in the movie, or you don't get no union jobs, or the union will strike on you. You will not make this movie. That's what I heard him say on Stern.
I heard he basically grabbed Brando and he was acting out the scene, but he got a little rough with Brando. And I guess Brando turned around and he was like, give this guy the part. He's perfect for the role. Then allegedly I heard that he had a really nice car, like a Bentley or something. And he ended up driving Brando back and forth from the set of The Godfather to his home every day.
Okay.
He got really tight with Brando. And I guess Brando was giving him acting lessons and, when he was driving them to the set and stuff. I think it's the same book. It's got to be. My buddy was talking about it.
I heard Brando never learned his lines. That's a big Brando.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people say that. Like, remember the scene in On the Waterfront? You know, his whole "I could have been a contender" scene.
Yeah, sure. Stella, right? Right. Stella, right?
No, that's Streetcar Named Desire. On the
Oh
Waterfront, he
yeah,
was the
yeah.
boxer.
Oh yes, yes, yes. I'm
He's in the
sorry.
back of the cab with his brother. Like, I could have been somebody. I could have been a contender. They say his entire dialogue is put up on a wall, and that's why you see him when a lot of times he's like looking up, like looking away from his brother. He's
Looking at
reading
the
all the
lines.
he's reading the lines.
Okay.
And then I just saw a picture of him recently from The Godfather. I think it's Tom Hagen. What's his face? Robert Duvall.
Right.
They're showing a scene where like Duvall's holding like a piece of paper like this off camera, and he's talking to somebody else, and he's reading the lines. They said he would never want to learn his lines.
Sad way to go. I mean, I was in California when he passed away in '04, and he ballooned up to like 400 pounds. I guess there was some shit, I guess, with one of his kids committing suicide, right?
Yeah, the kid that killed the guy, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. It
But
was good, man. I enjoyed Brando.
all right. So you wrote a screenplay about the Clash, right?
So the story goes, I'm a huge Clash fan. For those that don't know, I talk, Anyways, my moniker is DJ Chris Clash, which was given to me from Brian from Katie's in Smithtown. I have a huge affinity for the Clash. So basically, for the last couple of years, I read Redemption Song, which is a biography written by Chris Salewich. I got very friendly with him. Chris Salewich was a guy, he's probably close to our parents' age. The guy's in his 70s now, but he basically followed them around, and he wrote this awesome biography. He wrote one about Bob Marley, and I was so moved by the book, and I was so moved, it drove me to write a story. And I reached out to him one time, and I'm like, do you mind if I make a screenplay off your book? Because it's phenomenal. And there's no movies really on the Clash,
No,
and
I never
there's
heard of it.
really nothing about them, but they're one of the most influential punk bands back of that time period. And it's a pretty interesting story. So he said, yeah, no problem. He goes, if you ever come to London, he goes, I could probably hook you up with Mick Jones, whose birthday is today, along with my mother, or yesterday, right? And he goes, I could probably introduce you to Paul Simonon. So the drummer, I'm sorry, the bass guitarist. And I said, cool. So I kicked it around for a couple of years. I had a couple of notes. I bought a screenplay book about 8-9 months ago, and I've been just putting it into screenplay format. And basically, it's the story of Joe Strummer's life and the formation of the Clash. I took elements of the movie Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh, all right, listen,
Right.
let me jump in right here. Don't make it one of those movies where they come up with the song really weirdly. Like it's just how quick. Remember,
Well, there's one.
remember like
There's one
Queen,
scene I talk about. There's one scene.
yeah, I was just kicking that around.
There's one scene. There's one scene similar to that. I'm not gonna lie about Rock the Casbah, which is one of their biggest hits. Rock the Casbah was written by Topper Headon, the drummer who was hooked on heroin, who they threw out of the band. He's the guy that wrote Rock the Casbah.
Yeah.
And the beginning of the movie, without giving it too much away, Strummer comes from parents of diplomats, and he was like a middle class to upper middle class kid who was always like looked down upon by like the Johnny Roddens of the world, because Johnny Rodden's like this Irish guy who moved to London and was like completely ostracized, because he was Irish in the middle of an English neighborhood, English country, and he always looked down on Strummer, who wrote a lot of his songs were politically charged, and they were more towards the left and stuff. And he was like, this guy, he's basically a poser. He's a guy, talking about middle class stuff and lower class people stuff, but he comes from like diplomats and stuff.
Yeah.
So like one of the beginning scenes that I write, and the Casbah kind of draws into this, is that the father was basically shipped off to like India to, basically they got estranged. The kids went into like a boarding school, and the parents went to India because he was a diplomat for England. So I kind of tied that in. Without giving away too much of the movie, it basically gives a lot of tidbits about Strummer's life. And also the formation of the Clash, and it also, the ending is very similar to the way, again, without giving it away, I'll put it this way. If you've ever seen The End of the Doors by Oliver Stone, where he's in the bathtub and they fashion after that, it's not exactly that, but the way Strummer passed away, he passed away in December of 2002, and he passed away from allegedly a congenital heart defect. So he walked his dogs, he came back, and he dropped dead on his couch. So up until that point, about 3 or 4 weeks prior to that, one of the biggest regrets of Strummer's life was he fired Mick Jones, which I go into in the screenplay. And I guess 3 or 4 weeks before he passed away, he had a new band called Joe Strummer and the Mescaleros, and they did this huge benefit for the firemen in Acton, England. And Mick Jones spontaneously came up on stage. They got together, and they kind of kicked around, I guess reuniting the Clash. But I guess Paul Simon and the bassist was against it. So basically, right around the time where he passed away because of the heart attack, he he sent over a fax to Paul Simon and basically stating to him like, "Look, we're going to get inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2002 in another month or two. He goes, why don't we all perform together?" And he goes, "We have a record deal." And without giving it away, it's kind of like the end of the story is kind of similar to The Doors, and between the way he passes away and between that fax coming around about reuniting the band. It's a pretty sad story in some regards. It's a song about redemption, which is the name of Salowich's book, The Redemption Song. And I was talking this over with my wife and a couple friends the other week, and they said the same thing. And I think you just said it a moment ago that there's nothing about them.
No, I've never heard
band. There's nothing out there.
When we talked like a couple of months ago too about the Ramones. I don't think is there a Ramones? I don't think there's a Ramones movie either. Right?
There's a movie called CBGB's, which is about the beginning of that band, that bar down the Lower East Side. So,
is that the one? Alan Rickman, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I said that's actually a real cool movie, man.
That's a cool movie. So that the Ramones are in that.
Yeah. That's like before he died. Right before Rickman died, I think.
Yes. But there's not actually a movie about the Ramones, which is another interesting story, and maybe I'll get around to writing something about that. To me, Strummer's always grown on me the last 10, 15 years, as I've gotten older, because he reminds me of my grandfather and his populist views and his left-wing views. I'm probably one of the only people in my family, Mike, and for the audience out there that leans right. Most of my family, they're from Europe and stuff, and they kind of lean towards that leftist, vision that Strummer had. But, he's grown on me because basically, without getting too personal, he died the way that my grandfather died. It always reminds me of that, in December of the year. The guy was a people-oriented guy, as far as, he loved people. He loved all cultures and all types of music. And there was, I think, a little bit of a regret in the guy's life in the way that the band broke up. Because the reality of it was the Clash broke up after about 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
And, I think that if they had stayed together, they probably would have had a much bigger influence than they did, versus. So, I've been kicking around. I'm almost finished. I've done some research. I wanted to reach out to Dito. So we have a close friend of ours, Chris, who I'm going to reach out to see if he has any advice. But I don't think there's really a lot of money in selling a screenplay. So from what I understand, for your first screenplay, I think you can make anywhere between like $7,000 to $10,000, unless you sell it to like a big time producer, or if like you're a guy like Cuomo, for example, who sold his book rights. And I think if you write a book versus sell a screenplay, I think you can make more money off like selling the rights to the book versus the actual screenplay. But the reality of it is, if I can get it sold, it kind of opens my doors. So if I ever do something else, my second or third project, if this one's, successful, could really get me paid. So we'll see, man. We'll see.
Buy his screenplay, man. Who's ever listening? Buy the screenplay. Option the rights, whatever they call it.
Yeah,
speaking of that, then, like all right. So you're a Joe Strummer. I know you're a Joe Strummer Clash fan. Would you go see a Joe Strummer hologram band? We kicked this around a while ago about holograms coming back. You would go see a hologram?
In a heartbeat, man. In a heartbeat. Here's the top guys I would say. I would see the Beatles, who obviously they're a little bit, they were busted out by the time I was old enough to go to shows. So it'd be the Beatles, the Clash. I spoke to Salowich maybe about 5-6 years ago, and I asked him that question when it was, right around the time of the Tupac thing in Coachella. And I said to him, do you think Paul Simon and Mick Jones would ever consider doing a hologram tour? And he goes, absolutely not. So the question that you asked me, yes, I would. B, do I
It's
think
gonna
would ever
happen.
happen? There's certain acts that I don't think would ever do
No.
it, and they're
Oh
one of
no,
them.
no. Yeah, I think it all depends. Like, who needs the money? That's all that comes down. Like if those guys in the Clash are just like, yo, I just want to go live my life, and especially two man, they're a lot older.
They're
I
in the
think it.
70s at this point.
All right, let's put it this way. All right, Dave. I mean, Dave Grohl has killed it with the Foo Fighters.
Nirvana,
Well, what the fuck ever happened to Chris Novoselic? I
he's out
bet if
there.
I don't know what he does, but I bet if you approached Novoselic and said, "Listen, we can put up hologram Kurt," and who even cares about Grohl on the drums?
I think the biggest issue, Mike, with some of these things is not that would people go, because I do think there's a market for it,
Oh
and it's getting
yeah,
bigger and bigger. I think the real issue is like some of these estates and some of these acts are
yeah,
so
yeah.
like
It's all who owns the rights.
right.
But I think too, doesn't Courtney Love own most of the Nirvana stuff?
She is, and that goes back to like
And
the whole conspiracy theory that we talked about a couple episodes ago, or
yeah,
in the sense that I think if he divorced her, she would have lost a shitload of money. So the motive is that allegedly he wanted to divorce her, and before he got the opportunity, she had him offed, which is
yeah.
the longest story for another time.
I wonder what she. Let's see what she's worth. Quick.
She's definitely up there. She's definitely up there.
I mean,
But
all that. I mean, all those like
he wrote
royalty.
all
Right?
her. He wrote
Yeah.
all the stuff off that Major Hole album, or most of it. For those
Well,
first one or
yeah,
two.
he was like the ghostwriter on it, right?
Right, right. And allegedly, the conspiracy theory goes that he was looking to divorce her, and if he divorced her, she'd have lost all the rights to all the songs and stuff.
Holy shit!
Yeah, she's up there, man.
$100 million.
Yep.
$100 million to do. Wow, she's 5'10". I didn't know that. $100 million. She used to live. I don't know if she still does. She used to live right across the street from the 6th precinct down in the West Village.
Really?
They said she was she had a building there. Brooke Shields lived over there too.
We used to see Madonna near my dad's building up on Central Park West and 72nd. She used to run early in the morning, like 6, 7 in the morning. She used to have like 30 people running around, near Central Park and stuff. This is like around the time she was dating Jose Canseco back in the day.
Oh, okay.
Like 91, like 89, 91-ish, right around that point.
Yeah. Courtney Love, I never saw. They said every now and then, though, she would just walk into the precinct, whacked out of her mind. Because I think she was having neighbor issues. And she would come in like complaining about and then the neighbors would come in and complain about her. She'd stroll in at like 4 a.m. out of her mind. But who also lived across the street over there was Brooke Shields. I met her once. Wowzers. This had to be maybe less than 10 years ago.
In terms of looks, are just whacked out.
No, looks unbelievable.
Okay.
Like she still looks exactly the same.
Yeah, she aged pretty well. She
was like walking her dog. She came by, she said hello, and walked right back into her house. But yeah, she looks exactly the same. The camera, there's no camera magic with her.
Okay.
Really, really, really amazing. I guess that's about it for that. Oh, one quick thing. I got to give a shout out. I was supposed to do it last week. My man, Chris Beige, the crooner himself, my buddy Chris, saw Cruella when we were trashing it last week. And he said we were absolutely right. The movie blew. But he did, however, say the soundtrack was incredible. And I mean, we were talking about how much it costs sometimes to put music in movies. This is a Disney movie. He said the soundtrack is basically every major hit from like the late 50s to like the late 60s is in it. And he said it's just unreal. He said the music is awesome, but the movie was horrible. So Beige, I didn't forget you, man. I told you I'd do it last week. I forgot. I did it this week. The crooner is always right. Make sure you knock with your elbows. He knows what I'm talking about.
I will check it out. I had never got around to seeing it.
I'm not gonna see that movie. I could care less at this point, man. I don't have little kids anymore. There's no reason for me to see it. But I haven't seen anything. There's been nothing good out.
No, it's been weak, man. I think the two movies I'm looking forward to, I guess, is The Saints of Newark, which we talked about last week.
Yeah, yeah.
The
That's
Sopranos
September,
prequel.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that's being released in HBO Max and in the
Yes.
theaters at the same time. And then the other one is Top Gun 2. You know, that I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah. You know what movie I have no real desire for, and I just saw another trailer for it, was Suicide Squad, the reboot of Suicide Squad.
Yes, 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 yes.
I can
Oh, wait a second. Before we go any further, next week, it's Macho time. The UFO report got released.
Oh yeah, we got to go into that. Yeah, Macho.
Macho Man.
Get
Ooh,
it
yeah.
get it up. Get all your stuff together, Macho. Get your chart graphs and Venn diagrams. Put it all together, Macho.
Now he's definitely got to come on, man. I saw that. I completely forgot about that.
I saw it got released. I didn't read anything yet. I think we really got to like deep dive, like read it.
Definitely.
Yeah, Macho. Hey, Macho, if you're listening right now,
next week, buddy.
Yeah, text me if you still got the same number, so we'll talk during the week.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything too earth shattering other than what we talked about, but I looked at a little bit of it. We'll get more into it next week.
All right.
But
yeah,
I wanted to bring that up.
All right, cool.
And then I think I'm good. I think.
Yeah, I'm good. We didn't get to a whole bunch of stuff. Let's see. What didn't we get to? Well, we did the holograms. All right, good. The Challenger. We didn't get to that. The explosion. They said they were still alive. That sucks. You wanted to talk about foods that built America.
Yeah, we'll get around to that. That's a pretty interesting show.
Trans athletes. The openly gay guy. The openly gay guy in the NFL. Nobody gives a shit anymore, guy. It's not like you were the best player. I think that guy actually said that so he'd keep his job. Now that he's like in,
I don't know.
So now it's like you get rid of him, and
I don't know what to make of it, Mike. I don't want to get myself in trouble on the podcast and stuff, but I can tell you this: I see a lot of pandering, going on in all the major sports.
But it's
one thing I did see is that UEFA, the soccer federation, they ruled against the German stadiums, lighting the German soccer stadiums, lighting their stadiums up in the rainbow colors. Because they stated something to the effect that they didn't want any political messages in soccer games in Germany, and I think they got a lot of backlash. But I don't know, man. It's a touchy subject for a lot of people, so I don't want to offend anybody.
That's what I'm talking about, exactly. And maybe next week, next week's gonna be Macho time, and then probably the week after that we'll start getting into the New York City mayor's race.
Oh yeah, who's leading now? Is it Eric Adams or is it?
I think he's gonna win. I think he's got like a double-digit lead. Curtis Sliwa is already the Republican dude.
Is he?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I can't really see Sliwa beating out Adams if that's the matchup. I'll tell you what, I like Adams. I mean, he's an ex-cop. I mean, he seems to be, of all the candidates. I mean, he's seeing, he seems to be touching a lot of different things that I think are meaningful. And look, we talked about it, Mike. I think the biggest thing for a lot of people that live in the city and stuff is safety, man. People want to feel safe. They want to be able to go to a show. They want to be able to go out with their kids, not worry about any bullshit. All things aside, I think he's got a lot of good stuff. If I was voting in the election, which I can't anymore, but I'd probably go to him at this point, depending on what Sliwa said. So,
all right. What do you got to plug?
Usual, bro. Jay Cristiano, Cardinal Financial. Code 4215, 844-442-7334. Give Jay a shout. You're looking to refinance your house or purchase a home. Real estate market is still super hot, guys. So Jay will hook you up. He works super quick, and I'm not lying to you. He's helped me tremendously. The Mad Donkey, Tommy D's place. 3207 36th Avenue, Astoria, New York. And I am officially booked basically to I guess the end of the summer, or pretty close to it. I have a couple spots left. Check my website out, www.djchrisclash. I did a graduation party last night for a really close friend of mine and his kid, Tony. I hope you had a good time. Put some pictures up on Facebook. Mention the podcast, mention you're a friend of Mike. I will absolutely do my best to, give you a discount. And come the fall when the wedding season's full blown again, and COVID's really done, check me out. I'll really do the right thing by people. All right, so check me out, DJ Chris Clash. Take it away, Mike.
All right, all I got, my usual. Check out my buddy Jack. I Can Paint. Provmatic at Twitch. Watch him play video games. And Pat Dixon, Compound Media. He's got New York City Crime Report podcast, which I've been a guest on several times. And he's also got the Crime Report on Compound Media every Thursday live at 7:30. Subscribe to Compound Media, and you can watch all of their shows. It's been a great week. Listen, have a great, I think are we on before 4th of July next week?
July 3rd.
July 3rd. So we'll be on before 4th of July, possibly Macho Time.
Macho Time.
And that's it, everybody. Thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, share. We love yous. We'll see you next week.
The old Rush Limbaugh song, for those that used to listen to Rush.
Makes me want to do opioids. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.